2,000 years ago, when empires still spoke in the language of steel, the earth bore witness to a storm no age would ever forget. From the west came an army of iron, 50,000 men forged by centuries of conquest, their red shields blazing beneath the morning sun. From the east rose a kingdom of fire, twice their number, led by a king who called himself the heir of Alexander. War elephants roared at the front, and armored horsemen gleamed like molten gold in the dawn. Then the horn sounded, and the world exploded. The ground shook, the sky turned to night beneath a rain of arrows, and the clash of steel roared like the wrath of gods. Dust rose, fire spread, and the plain became a storm of blood and thunder. When the winds finally ceased, the old world was gone, and from its ashes a new power rose to rule the centuries. When the 2nd century BC began, the balance of power in the ancient world was shifting. In the east rose the Seleucid Empire, born from the shattered conquests of Alexander the Great, stretching from the deserts of Persia to the warm coasts of Asia Minor, modern Turkey. Its king Antiochus III, called the Great, had restored lost provinces and rebuilt an empire of marble and bronze. To his people, he was Alexander reborn, chosen by destiny to unite East and West once more. But to Rome, he was a shadow reaching too close to their light. In the West stood the Roman Republic, hardened by centuries of war on Italia, the Italian peninsula. Rome had crushed Carthago, Carthage, subdued Macedon, seized Sicilia, and extended its reach across Iberia, modern Spain and Portugal, and the proud cities of Hellas, ancient Greece. Everywhere the legions marched, they spoke of freedom, yet the freedom they offered always ended in Roman rule. Temples of Greece now flew Roman standards. Orators who once praised the gods now praised governors. Antiochus watched with anger and disbelief. He saw in Rome not order, but arrogance, not liberty, but chains hidden behind fine words. He swore the East would rise again, that he would drive Rome back across the sea and restore the balance the world had lost. He believed the gods had chosen him to finish what Alexander began. The Senate of Rome answered with cold authority. They demanded Antiochus withdraw from Greece and acknowledge Roman supremacy. The king laughed. "The world is not yours yet," he said. In 192 BC, he crossed the Aegean and landed at Demetrius, modern Volos, Greece, proclaiming himself the protector of Greek freedom. To many Greeks, he was a hero. To Rome, an invader. The Republic declared war. Two worlds, two destinies were now on a collision course. Antiochus assembled more than 70,000 men, 16,000 phalangites with spears 12 feet long, 12,000 armored cataphracts, archers from Media, horsemen from Bactria, and 54 war elephants brought from the plains of India. His army glittered like a moving sea of gold and bronze, yet its brilliance hid a weakness: pride. He trusted courage more than discipline, spectacle more than structure. Across the sea, Rome's reply came in iron. Lucius Cornelius Scipio, brother of Scipio Africanus, led fewer than 30,000 veterans hardened in the wars against Hannibal. They carried no treasures, no elephants, only the discipline of the legion, a formation that could bend but never break. At his side rode Eumenes, the second of Pergamon, a shrewd ally who knew every road of Asia Minor, and whose hatred of Antiochus was stronger than his friendship with Rome. Seleucid numbers promised might. Roman discipline promised victory. Both believed the gods favored them. As winter settled over the plain of Magnesia at Sipylum, beneath the silent peaks of Mount Sipylus, two armies encamped within sight of one another. Thousands of fires flickered through the night like fallen stars. Priests murmured to forgotten gods. Soldiers sharpened blades and whispered the names of those they loved. Before dawn, the valley fell silent. A stillness so deep it felt as though Olympus itself were waiting to see which empire would rise with the sun and which would be buried beneath its light. Night had fallen over the plains of Magnesia at Sipylum, modern Manessa, Turkey. 1,000 campfires burned beneath the cold shadow of Mount Sipylus, glowing like scattered stars. The smell of iron, oil, and smoke drifted through the air, the breath of two empires waiting for dawn. In the eastern camp, the banners of Antiochus the Great fluttered above a sea of tents. Drums thundered in slow rhythm as priests carried torches between ranks, burning incense to Zeus, to Apollo, to the forgotten gods of Persia and Babylon. The war elephants stood restless, chains clinking, their dark eyes reflecting firelight. Each carried a wooden tower with archers inside, their bows already strung, arrows gleaming like needles of flame. Behind them, the phalanx slept in silence. 16,000 men shoulder to shoulder, each shield overlapping the next, each spear polished until it shimmered like dawn. They were the pride of the Seleucid host, the rebirth of Alexander's army. Antiochus himself stood outside his royal tent, cloaked in red and gold, his face lit by the fire of a brazier. He had fought 100 battles, crossed deserts and mountains, and restored half an empire. Yet tonight, his eyes betrayed unease. He looked toward the west, where Rome waited beyond the mist. He could almost hear their drums answering his own. For the first time, he felt that the gods were silent. Across the valley, the Roman camp was a different world. No gold, no ceremony, only discipline. The legions were arranged in perfect order, their tents aligned like a city of soldiers. Blacksmiths worked through the night, hammering iron until the air itself seemed to pulse. Officers moved quietly between rows, checking armor, whispering orders. Every man knew his place, his weapon, his duty. They did not pray for victory, they prepared to earn it. At the center of the camp, Lucius Cornelius Scipio studied the terrain by lamplight, tracing lines across a map with his finger. Beside him stood Eumenes II of Pergamon, his expression sharp and calculating. Antiochus will attack with his elephants first, Eumenes said. They always lead with thunder. Scipio nodded. Then we let the storm come to us, and when it breaks, we strike its heart. Their plan was simple, brutal, and brilliant. Rome would hold the center with the legions, let the elephants crash against their shields. Meanwhile, Eumenes would command the cavalry on the right, circling behind the Seleucid line, striking where their formation was weakest, the massive but rigid phalanx that could not turn once engaged. Dawn approached. The mist began to lift, revealing the valley like a stage set for gods. Horns sounded from the Seleucid camp, deep and heavy, shaking the ground. The elephants were moving. Antiochus mounted his black horse, his crimson cloak whipping in the wind. Trumpets blared, echoing across the plain. 60,000 men roared as one. On the Roman side, the legions tightened ranks. Scipio raised his sword, a simple iron blade, dull compared to the jeweled weapons of kings, but it caught the morning light like fire. He whispered to his officers, "Hold the line." The first rays of the sun spilled over Mount Sipylus. Shields flashed. The valley came alive with sound. The clash of drums, the cry of horns, the thunder of hooves. The Titans had begun to march. Dawn broke over the valley of Magnesia at Sipylum, modern Manessa, Turkey. The mist still clung to the grass, heavy and silent, when a single horn cried from the eastern hills. It was deep, ancient, like the sound of the earth itself awakening. Another horn answered, then another, and soon 1,000 voices rose together. The ground began to shake. 54 war elephants surged forward, their armor glinting bronze in the newborn sun. From the wooden towers on their backs, archers loosed arrows in endless streams, their cries mingling with the thunder of drums. Each step was a tremor, each breath a storm. Behind them, 16,000 men of the phalanx advanced, a forest of spears 20 feet high, shields locked edge to edge. Their bronze helmets caught the dawn like molten fire. Above them, The crimson and gold banners of Antiochus the Great rippled in the wind. From afar, it looked as if a living tide of metal was rolling across the plain. Antiochus himself rode at the right flank, among the cataphract cavalry of Media and Bactria, men and horses encased in steel from head to hoof. His crimson cloak streamed behind him, his sword raised to the sky. "Forward!" he roared. "Let the West remember the power of Asia." The army answered with a roar that shook the mountains. Drums thundered, horns blared, and the plain of Magnesia awoke in fire. Across the valley, the Roman legions waited in silence. No music, no shouting, only the sound of armor tightening and shields locking. The soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes fixed ahead, waiting for the storm to come. Scipio rode slowly down the line, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "Hold the line. Let them break upon you, and the gods will break them." The elephants came first. The earth quaked beneath their charge. Their shrieks pierced the air, the smell of dust and sweat choking every breath. When they hit, it was like the world itself had collided. Shields shattered. Men were thrown aside. The Roman front buckled, but it did not break. Spears jabbed upward, stabbing beneath the beasts' necks. Javelins and burning stones rained down from the rear ranks, striking the elephants' eyes. The creatures screamed, blinded, enraged, and turned back, trampling their own soldiers in madness. Within moments, the proud vanguard of Antiochus became chaos. That was the signal Eumenes II of Pergamon had been waiting for. From the Roman right, his cavalry charged like lightning, swift, disciplined, deadly. They swept behind the elephants, cutting down handlers, striking at the flanks of the phalanx. Dust exploded across the field, blinding men and horses alike. But the Romans moved with purpose, their discipline carving order out of chaos. Antiochus saw his center falter. "Forward!" he shouted, spurring his horse. 1,000 cataphracts followed, a wall of steel rushing toward the Roman flank. The impact was cataclysmic. Spear met spear, sword met shield. Men were crushed beneath hooves. Armor splintered. Blood darkened the sand. The air itself seemed to scream. The valley became a furnace of noise and fury. For a moment, the Seleucid king believed victory was near. The Roman line bent beneath the weight of his cavalry. But Scipio had planned for this. He raised his sword, a flash of light amid the storm, and trumpets answered his call. The legions shifted with precision, opening corridors through which the maddened elephants charged harmlessly through, then closing again like iron jaws. They turned, countered, and struck back with shields and short swords. The rhythm of death, methodical and unstoppable. Slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn. Seleucid banners wavered. The great formation of the phalanx, mighty, ancient, glorious, was now trapped amid dust, blood, and screaming beasts. Its strength was its weakness. It could not move, could not bend, could not see. From above, the battlefield no longer looked human. It was a storm of bronze and fire, of men swallowed by their own thunder, of gods watching from afar in silence. And as the dust rose higher, blotting out the sun, neither Rome nor Asia could yet know that within that swirling haze, the fate of empires was already being rewritten. The plain of Magnesia was no longer a battlefield. It was an inferno. The dust had swallowed the sun, and the roar of men and beasts rolled like thunder across the valley. What had begun as order was now madness. The Seleucid host, once the pride of Asia, was dissolving into chaos. At the center, the phalanx still stood, a wall of bronze and will, but it was dying on its feet. The elephants, blind and bleeding, tore through their own ranks. The long spears that once struck fear into nations were now traps, too long to turn, too heavy to wield. The men inside the formation were crushed against one another, unable to move, unable even to breathe. The proud forest of spears, symbol of Alexander's glory, was breaking apart, one splinter at a time. From the eastern flank, Antiochus the Great saw it all. The banners that once glowed gold now burned red with dust and blood. The shouts of his generals were lost beneath the storm. He clenched his sword until his knuckles bled. Around him, his cataphracts faltered, their iron armor glinting dimly in the haze. He turned to his guards, 1,000 horsemen of the royal corps. "Follow me," he roared. "If the gods will not save us, then we shall burn as kings." He spurred his black stallion forward. The royal guard followed, a wave of steel crashing through the wreckage of the phalanx. Antiochus cut down the first line of Roman infantry, his blade flashing through dust and flame. He fought like a man possessed, like a god defying his fate. But fate does not bleed. His charge cut deep but not far, for the Romans bent and closed like the jaws of a trap. Across the valley, Scipio saw the glint of the king's crimson cloak through the smoke. He raised his sword and shouted, "Now! Drive them to the sun!" Trumpets blared. The legions advanced in unison, shields locked, swords stabbing, the steady rhythm of iron on flesh. They did not roar. They did not falter. They moved forward like an avalanche of destiny. The Seleucid lines broke. The elephants turned and fled, trampling their own masters. The phalanx collapsed in on itself. Once a fortress, now a tomb. Men screamed for orders that would never come. The golden age of the East was dying beneath the boots of Rome. In the heart of the storm, Antiochus's horse was struck by a Roman spear. The beast screamed and reared, hurling its rider to the ground. For a moment, the great king lay in the mud, the dust of Asia clinging to the face that once shone like a god's. His guards pulled him to his feet, blood streaking his armor. He looked once more toward the center of the field, where the eagles of Rome now rose above the smoke, gleaming in the light of a world reborn. He did not curse. He did not cry. He only whispered to himself, voice low and hollow, "Even gods can fall." Then he turned his horse and rode from the valley, not as a conqueror, but as a shadow of what once was. Behind him, Magnesia burned. The air was thick with the scent of ash and iron, and above the flames, the drums of Rome beat slow and steady, the heartbeat of a new empire rising from the ruins of the old. When the sun finally broke through the smoke, the valley of Magnesia lay silent. The roar of battle was gone. Only the wind remained, whispering through broken spears and shattered shields. The plain was carpeted with the dead. Elephants lay on their sides like fallen mountains, armor twisted and torn. The proud banners of Asia were trampled into mud. The air was thick with the stench of iron and ash. Here and there, the dying called out for water, for gods that no longer answered. The age of kings had ended in the dust. On the far hill, the Roman eagles rose above the smoke. They caught the morning light, gold against gray, a sign that the world now belonged to them. The soldiers moved among the fallen, silent and grim, not cheering, not rejoicing, for even victory smelled like death. At the center of the field stood Lucius Cornelius Scipio, his armor dark with soot. He looked across the valley, at the broken phalanx, at the elephants lying like monuments of a forgotten age. He sheathed his sword and whispered, "The gods favor the patient." To the east, far beyond the chaos, a lone rider fled across the plain. It was Antiochus the Great. His cloak was torn, his face streaked with blood and dust. Behind him, the empire he had rebuilt now lay in ruins. He did not look back. He rode toward the mountains, toward exile, a king without a crown, a conqueror without a world. That night, the fires of Magnesia burned for miles, a sea of red beneath a silent sky. The wind carried ashes across Asia Minor, over the same lands Alexander had once marched, as if the world itself was erasing its memory of empires past. Rome had triumphed, but what it inherited was not glory, only the burden of eternity. And so, in the valley of Magnesia, one dream died and another began. Years passed. The world forgot the roar of Magnesia, but its shadow still clung to the mountains of Asia. The once mighty Seleucid Empire had crumbled. Its cities fell silent. Its coins bore foreign faces, and the eagles of Rome now cast their shadow from the Aegean to the Euphrates. The dream of a united East and West, the dream of Antiochus the Great, was gone. In his exile, Antiochus wandered across the eastern plains. No crown, no throne, only memories. Those who had called him the Great now served Rome, and the soldiers who once carried his banners had become mercenaries in foreign lands. He was a ghost walking through the ruins of his own glory. Yet even in defeat, his pride refused to die. When word came that Roman troops had crossed the frontier near Elymai, the old king rose from his tent. He donned the same armor he had worn at Magnesia, dented, scorched, but still gleaming with the fire of a memory. At dawn, he mounted his black horse. Before him stood only a handful of loyal riders, men who had followed him through deserts and storms. He looked at them and smiled. If the gods have taken my empire, then let them witness how a king still dies. As the first light touched the hills, he charged. The Roman camp stirred in confusion as a wave of riders burst from the mist, a handful against 1,000. Spears leveled, arrows flew. But Antiochus rode through the storm, his cloak torn, his sword blazing like a shard of sun. He fought not to win, but to burn one last time. A Roman javelin struck his chest. He fell from his horse, landing among the dust and dawn. For a moment he tried to rise again, but the strength left him. He looked to the east, toward the rising sun, and smiled. In that final breath, he was not a fallen king, but a man who had become his own legend. They buried him where he fell, beneath the red hills of Elymai. No temple, no crown, no song, only the wind. But when that wind sweeps the valley, the shepherds say they still hear the sound of hooves and a voice calling through the ages, a voice that once dreamed of uniting the world. And thus, in the ashes of his fall, Rome rose eternal. But the dust of Antiochus the Great still rides with the wind.